Do we mistake emotional distance for discipline and control for strength? In this episode, you'll learn how Batman and Robin from 1997 show us that love wasn't something to fear, but something to fight for. Welcome to the Fandom Portals podcast, the podcast that explores how fandoms and film can help us learn and grow. I'm Aaron, a teacher and film fan, and each week on the podcast, we explore the stories we love to learn more about ourselves and the worlds that shape us. Today, I'm joined by Brash, and behind the scenes, this was take 4.
It was a good start.
Very good start. But you know what? I still don't think it was much of a train wreck as the disaster of the movie that we have been looking at for this week, which is Batman and Robin from 1997.
And I would also like to point out that you guys forced us to watch.
Yes,
Again.
Indeed. This was a community pick. We did a fight bracket and it came victorious in the end. It beat titles such as Sucker Punch and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. You had to pick a movie that failed and flopped at the box office. So our theme arc for this one, and this is the last movie in the theme arc too, which is Failure Isn't Final. And it's the movies that aimed high, stumbled, but still have something to teach us. It's those misguided epics, and this series is going to ask us, what do stories that failed to find their audience teach us about finding ourselves? So yeah, you guys picked this one for us. It actually won by a pretty big landslide, Brash. It was very popular.
I like to go on the record that I voted for Sucker Punch.
Yeah, yes. That being said, though, we always strive, as is our niche in the podcast, to look for a lesson that this film can teach us. And we're going to go through today some of the reasons why this movie failed, where other Batmans had seen a lot of success. We're going to look at some of the characters in this movie and how they show connection and affection towards one another. And we were discussing before that 3 of the characters in this movie show connection and love toward one another in a very unhealthy way. And one of them is in a very more accepting and healthy way.
Not healthy way.
Yeah, less than not healthy. So actually not so bad, but we're going to get into Brash's famous synopses of this film. So strap yourselves in. If you're a fan of Batman and Robin, we do apologize. I know it has some nostalgic fans. I'm a massive Batman fan. Like, he is tattooed on my arm. So we say this with love, and just know that we love the characters. This movie, however, fun times. Take it away, Brash.
So I've gloriously titled my synopsis, Batman and Robin, a very serious film about ice puns. Gotham City is once again in peril, but don't worry, because Batman and Robin is here to chill absolutely any sense of tension to death. Batman, George Clooney, wearing nipples with the confidence of a man who was not warned, and Robin, Chris O'Donnell, apparently stuck in a teenage angst mode, must face their chilliest foe yet, Mr. Freeze, a villain whose entire personality is based on delivering ice. His motivation, save his frozen wife. His method, cryogenic and stand-up comedy. Every line out of Mr. Freeze's mouth is an isolated comedy of gold.
I see what you did there.
Let's kick some ice. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. Stay cool, bird boy. You'd think after the 10th pun someone would freeze him mid-sentence, but no, this move skates on thin ice and somehow never falls through. Meanwhile, Poison Ivy shows up, emerging from a plant-like seductive environmental TED Talk. Uma Thurman delivers every line like she's flirting with the camera, the audience, and possibly the concept of photosynthesis itself. Her goal? Save the planet. Her strategy? Crimes, pheromones, and flooding so intense it could cause bat credit cards to exist. Yes, Batman has a credit card. Yes, it says Batman on it. Yes, it never expires. Robin, feeling overshadowed and emotionally frosted, sulks his way through this movie, questioning his role, his place, and why Batman won't just communicate like a normal human billionaire bat. Their relationship arc is basically couples therapy, but with capes. Then there's Batgirl, who shows up instantly, masters martial arts, and becomes a crime-fighting icon in about 5 minutes, because why not? Logic left Gotham hours ago and took the last train to any other movie. The action scenes are neon-lit fever dreams, gangs wear glowing hockey armor, everyone glows, everything glows. Gotham looks like a city and more like a rejected rave fly from 1997. In the end, Batman learns the true lessons. Family matters, teamwork is cool, and love can thaw even the coldest heart, especially if you have enough lasers, bat gadgets, and medical science to cure literal cryogenic death. Batman and Robin is not a movie you watch, it's a movie you endure, embrace and eventually isolate in your memory as one of those most glorious unhinged superhero films ever made. It doesn't just jump the shark, it freezes it, shatters it, and makes a pun about it.
Very good. And you know what? I agree with some of the points that you made for sure.
And
Absolutely.
if you don't get that last joke, it doesn't just jump the shark, because the only other movie I can, like Batman movie, that's more ridiculous than probably this one is Adam West Batman, where he pulls out the shark repellent from his bat belt and sprays the
Yep.
shark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lord.
No, this one definitely leaned into the camp hardcore. And I like that we
Yeah.
mentioned Adam West because I do think that that was a big influence on this one. We always do a most valuable takeaway. And for this one, we have looked at the fact that love is not a weakness that compromises strength. It is a motivator that gives strength meaning. So we said before that of some of the characters in this movie don't demonstrate the healthiest forms of connection. They don't show love very well, or they don't show appreciation for their teammates, but they are modeled and shown how to do that by one father figure within the movie known as Alfred Pennyworth. And I think this came to my mind because, for one, there is a character in this movie that is supposed to epitomize like love and attraction. That's obviously Poison Ivy. And she puts a spanner in the works when it comes to our two title characters of Batman and Robin. But the problems existed between those characters way before she came along. I think primarily we know, and any Batman fan knows, that Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, has a big problem with connecting with people. It is no secret that he likes to work alone, and when he eventually did start to open up to a Robin character, it was a very long and arduous journey. And I think that they do exemplify that in this movie, more so in the one before this, Batman Forever. But I think Bruce Wayne, played by George Clooney in this one, he's a very emotionally stunted, and that may be because the acting is like not the best. And also, as a note, he's the only Bruce Wayne to play Bruce Wayne and Batman the exact same. Every other Batman that I've seen has done them differently for good reason. But he says quotes like, for example, the first line of the movie, the very first thing George Clooney says, this is why Superman works alone, like dismissive towards Robin. And, you know, there's also a scene where they have this massive falling out where he says, you know, basically, this is my house, this is my rules, classic dad energy. And he's just like, if you don't like it, you can leave. And
On my
he's
roof.
yeah. And that happens in the scene after he basically disables his Robin bike after they're chasing after Mr. Freeze, going down and driving down one of the large Greek-like statues in Gotham City. And he basically just disables his bike. But I think that Robin took that as him not trusting him. But I think Bruce actually did it because he shows care and concern, but he's doing that through control. And, you know, he has a scene later on with Alfred where Alfred actually calls him out on that. He says, I think from the moment your parents were taken away through chaos and like poor fortune, you've spent your whole life trying to then control chaos and beat death. And Bruce admits he's just like, I can't do it, can I? And he goes, no, you absolutely can't. So I think he's pushed that avoidant attachment onto Robin and onto Dick Grayson because their emotional relationship is getting stronger. They're getting closer. They need to trust each other more. So naturally, Bruce begins to pull away. This is classic for people who are like avoidant attachment people. And avoidant attachment people, usually they exhibit traits of withdrawal. And it's usually based on the fact that they've had trauma before. So,
did you see him when he's at like at the observatory when he donated, when he thinking like he's his billionaire Bruce Willis himself? He's not sort of like, he doesn't seem like say like the Nolan Bruce Wayne where he's like all playing the party boy. He's actually playing like a person trying to do good for Gotham at the forefront, but he's got his missus there.
yeah.
And they're like, oh, you guys gonna tie the knot? And he sort of gets started and he's like, and then she sort of asks him and says, oh, we're madly in love, but who knows about the future? I'm like, oh yeah. And I don't think we ever see that woman again in the movie. So,
No, she does come back. They have a dinner scene later and she doubles down on it basically because she says, she's like, get this. She's like, we've been together and seeing each other for almost a year now. And I just have to know whether it's time for us to get married or not. And Bruce is like, I'm not the marrying kind, which further doubles down on the like, I'm not connecting with you. And she even says, you know, if I try to push you too hard, you will pull away. So I'll give you this to think about. And he gives her a big, massive kiss. And she says, tell me when you're ready to talk about it. So I think that also like shows that he thinks that closeness compromises his autonomy and also his effectiveness to be Batman because, you know, it's common through the Spider-Man movies. He never got with Mary Jane because he was like, my enemies will use that closeness against me. And I feel like Batman feels the same
Batman does the
way.
same. He does the same.
Yeah.
That's why he used like that's why you generally the Bruce Wayne persona is him being a party boy, like just doesn't settle down, does all kind of messiness, especially in the younger versions of Batman. He's like more just a full on philanthropist, and then later on in life it's either Selena Kyle or nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this George Clooney plays emotionally stunted well because that is
Like
he's just
it is no
he
secret that he is also was before he got married at the time of this movie when he made it. He was a very famous bachelor and very eligible bachelor. And although I don't think he is a man that has not known love in many forms. So yes, I think what you're saying is very true. I think he was able to play this well because
he was one. But no, but
yeah,
I like it's like how you see like the actors like happy. He was just like the 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 Queen Master didn't know emotion enough.
yeah.
That was just him this whole entire movie as Bruce Wayne until like the end when he learns a lesson.
Yeah, in quotes, learns a lesson. I think you're right. And I think George Clooney in this one was becoming very popular after coming off the back of ER. And Joel Schumacher, the director, was saying that he wanted to get Val Kilmer back for this movie, but unfortunately, Val Kilmer decided to do a different movie, which I think is called Saint. And Joel Schumacher was a little bit annoyed because obviously the studio was pushing for these films to be brought out back to back due to the financial success of Batman Forever and the popularity that surrounded the franchise at the time. It was just the biggest thing that was going on. So he was forced to actually recast Batman, which, was also another reason why some critics leaned toward it or against it. But he did definitely bring his own Batman version to the character. And I saw an interview with George Clooney as he was talking about this role, and he said, just for the record as well, he agrees that this movie is not so good. But when he was doing an interview for this movie, he kind of said, Michael Keaton played Batman in his particular way, and then Val Kilmer brought something different to that role as well. And he said he kind of had to do something different also. And there's not much more in his eyes that he said that he could do to bring about his own version of Batman. But I think what he did was he made it more poppy, more cartoony, more, what's the word we're looking for here? Campy, and also sort of brought back that Adam West sort of style of it.
Yeah,
Because
a bit more for kids.
Yes, yeah. And that was also noted by Joel Schumacher as well. He said that this movie was definitely made more for kids, and we'll probably talk about it a bit later as to why that was. But if we're talking about Bruce and the way that he connects in this movie, he obviously is a trauma survivor, and he's equating this vulnerability to the danger that he's felt before. So when he gets close to people, he obviously begins to pull away, and he's got this control as a safety mechanism now. So everything around his Batman life is heavily controlled. He's got all these gadgets to prepare. We know that he's an impeccable detective character-wise, and in this movie they show that because he's able to guess where Batgirl's college is based on the emblem on her blazer that nobody else saw. But yeah, he's got these safety mechanisms, so I don't think he's cold. I think he's just afraid that love will destabilize him, because at the start of this movie as well, Mr. Freeze basically freezes Robin, and we know that once he's frozen, he's got 11 minutes, and for some reason it's 11 minutes for the whole movie. Anyone that's frozen, they've got 11 minutes to warm them, but 11 minutes to become thawed. And Freeze actually says, are you going to chase the villain or are you going to save the bird boy? He goes, this is why I always work alone, because your compassion makes you weak. And obviously Bruce decides to put Robin into the warm bath, use his laser to heat him up. The first thing Robin says when he gets out is like, did we get him? He's like, no, we didn't. And then from that point on, he's like cold towards him the whole time. Yeah. So I think
this is not joke. This is my life.
Yeah, and in Batman Forever as well, they doubled down on that in the one that comes before this, because there was the moment where Robin was being held aloft, and so was Nicole Kidman's character, who's called Chase Meridian, and Two-Face says, now it's time for you to choose, and he drops them, and then Batman has to go.
He saves them both.
Yes, he does, because he's Batman. But yeah, I think he's very much headstrong in the fact that he needs these rules, he needs these controls, he needs these procedures, and they can't be broken. He doesn't really believe in emotional expression as Batman. He seems very dismissive and avoidant in his attachment styles, and he's like very reluctant to say things that denote he cares. And I know that in the cartoon and through the comic books, that develops slowly. So when he gives like a tidbit of empathy towards a character that he cares about, like Dick Grayson, you're just like, oh yes, he does love him. So I think Like, that's what us as Batman fans hold on to. We want to see this hard exterior crack so we can see the gooey center that is Bruce Wayne, because we know he's a man that deeply cares and deeply loves. Because I don't think Bruce fears love because it's weak. I think he fears it because it reminds him of the things that he can't control. And he can't control others, and he can't control the way that he feels about others. So I think that in this one, he definitely can interpret that emotional attunement as a way to like be vulnerable to villains or whoever. But I think he definitely imposes that onto Robin. And as Robin is growing into a teenage character, quotes, played by Chris O'Donnell, you can see Robin begin to rebel against that. And one of my favorite arcs in the comic is when Robin then becomes and grows into the Nightwing character, and he breaks free from Batman because of that element of control. And that's a really big lesson for Bruce, because when he goes on and gets subsequent Robins, he knows that Dick goes and flourishes on his own, and he made a lot of mistakes when he was actually raising that boy, pretty much. So I think I know he's overacted, and I know that he's pretty much too old for the role, but I really like Chris O'Donnell as a Robin character, and I like the way he looks, and I like the way he was introduced in Batman Forever, that classic sort of Dick Grayson, Flying Grayson. And I really think that he's a guy that has a lot of sort of family value, because he used to work in a big unit in terms of the Flying Graysons in that circus performing stunt. So that's a good connection for Bruce, who has always just been him and Alfred. So I think Bruce Wayne, Batman, shows a very avoidant, dismissive attachment style of love, which is not really healthy. But the whole journey of this movie is that he learns to trust in the end, or, you know, in some capacity he does. I'll talk about that a bit later too, because that's a little bit weird how he does that. But do you have any thoughts on Robin Brash and how he shows rebellion against this?
Hated the character of Robin.
I liked him, man.
So much. I hated him so much. To me, he seems more like a Jason Todd than a Dick Grayson. If they had said, "Oh, that's Jason Todd, not Dick Grayson," I'd been like, "Oh, yeah, I see it."
Yeah,
because Jason Todd's he's more rebellious, he's more headstrong, he's more makes light of situations, whereas Dick Grayson was always, until he gets to the point where he becomes Nightwing, he was the perfect Robin in Batman's visage.
Yeah, I feel like in the beginning, especially in the comic book stories, he was enamored by Bruce and Batman.
Yeah.
And wanted to be that.
And I like, and in a way, so Dick knew what kind of man Bruce was and accepted that up until a point when he himself was then like, if I'm meant to be him, I can't do it. And then that's when he moves on to be Nightwing. Whereas Jason Todd, he was all about kicking ass, taking names, getting girls. He was reckless and all that kind of live. And that's why, like, that's how I feel they portrayed this Robin. They've portrayed him more as a Jason Todd Robin rather than a Dick Grayson Robin, because Dick Grayson, the original Robin Nightwing, is probably my favorite DC character out of all DC characters, aside from maybe Green Arrow.
Yeah.
But I reckon they did him dirty, and it wasn't Cole's fault. He did the best of what he got, and with the lines they gave him and the direction they gave him. I feel like if they had have made it Jason Todd Robin rather than Dick Grayson Robin, I could have believed it a bit more, their relationship.
Yeah.
Because because Dick Grayson to me, he's at the very start, at least when he first gets brought in with Batman, he's more of a savior to Dick Grayson. He lost his whole entire family. Bruce Wayne took him from having nothing and brought him in to his family, and then was able to help him get justice for his family, and by turning him into Robin and by letting him come along and helping him go get justice for his family.
I also think that Dick Grayson found justice in his own way. Like, for example, Batman might see justice as ending the life of somebody or ending the career of somebody, whereas Dick Grayson, I feel like, is a little bit more morally attuned. And I think that was the conflict
Batman's
between
rule
Batman.
one is no killing. That's Batman's rule one.
Yeah, but then like Jason Todd came along, and I feel like he was a lot more violent and a lot more aggressive, and he showed Bruce what the potential was for a child that sort of looked towards him and saw what he did and perceived it in that way. Like
Yeah,
he
in a
saw how
wild
that
way.
could end with Jason Todd. And I think that's the nuance of Robin. So if we're talking about Dick Grayson in this movie, for example, he's very much like the rebellious teen. And you can look at him as a boy who is sort of seeking connection because he's always trying to converse with Bruce and bring him down to his level. Like he says at the start, you know, "Oh, why don't I get a car? All the girls dig the car." And then he always says as well, you know, how we're supposed to work together if we don't trust one another. He says that as part of the Flying Graysons, we were a unit, we're a team. And he says sometimes in order to win or in order to succeed, you need to trust somebody and rely on them. And that's okay to do, which, you know, I think is a pretty mature way to sort of look at connection. But he's also like interpreting
He
that
says
care.
that though. He says that though. He like that's a lot on the lines they're giving him to say. Yet his portrayal of the actual character contradicts that heavily.
Oh, I
Like,
absolutely agree. I agree.
like that's what I mean. Like the way he played the character is more like a Jason Todd character, but they gave him lines to be a Dick Grayson character.
Mm.
So it doesn't really line up. So say if so like when Batman's like, oh no, you jump out there, you get frozen and gets frozen. If there had been some sort of character play like beforehand, he sees like a reflective mirror or some shit on the ground. It was actually going to dive out there, roll, grab the reflective mirror to block the ice beam and go. But because then maybe Batman tries to grab him back, which stunts him from getting there, and he gets frozen, then that could be the whole thing of like, oh, should have trusted me. I had a plan. Like we've been trained together. I have a plan because of your not willingness to trust me in our unit. It failed, and I got
Yeah.
frozen.
And I think that that's portrayed through like Dick Grayson as well. He's very reckless, and he'll go out and he'll find trouble, and in a way to try and prove himself.
That was never a Dick Grayson thing though.
No,
That's
but
what
it's a
annoys
Chris
me.
O'Donnell Robin thing.
Yeah, that's a Chris exactly. But that's
It's
like that's more of a Jason Todd thing though. Like
Yeah,
he'd go
and
out and do rebellious shit just
Yeah.
because I go street racing and shit like that. That's a Jason Todd thing.
Well, yeah, he says things like, you know, don't get all protective on me. And he goes, I'm tired of living in your shadow. And he's like, I'm going solo after he gets thrown into a bucket of ice cream.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
he's
yeah,
completely.
that's Dick Grayson though. Years and years and years from being like a young kid to being like almost a full-fledged adult.
Yeah.
Going off on his own. Yeah. It's like they just did this like time jump.
Yeah, like he plays off to me as this boy that's kind of insecure about his emotional attachment to a father figure, and he's either being rebellious to try and seek approval and to seek like taking these risks because if they are pulled off, he'll be seen as competent by Bruce Wayne and Batman, and he'll be seen as a valued member of his team, and therefore he'll receive the care and love. So he's almost combating Bruce's avoidant attachment by trying to be overly skilled at things, but obviously not having the background or the experience to pull them off. So he's craving this autonomy and this belonging. And I feel like boys often do interpret that because he's not Bruce isn't showing care towards Robin. He seems like he's showing control. So when he is not emotionally attuned and he is perceiving it as being controlled, it almost leads to him also then being pushed away. And in order for him to support and preserve his identity as Robin and somebody who is independent and strong and somebody who's a valued member of his Bat team, he almost then needs to pull himself away from it. But I agree with you where he says things like, we need to be part of a team. You need to trust me more. But then he then doesn't do things that are trustworthy. Like he'll be reckless. He will take risks. He'll put Bruce Batman in very unorthodox positions. He will be swayed by the enemy. But I do think he's susceptible to Ivy's charms because she reframes his...
Because he's a hornog who likes to hit on every single thing that moves.
Yeah, but I think she also, when she says, you know, you don't need him, there should be like a Robin signal in the sky. That's like, it seems like she's reframing that control into like freedom for him. So that's what's attractive to him as well. And he's finally seeing somebody who idolizes him and likes him, even though it's completely false. I feel like Dick learns that like trust doesn't come easy for one. But the scene where they're said to like rebuild that trust is absolutely rubbish in my opinion, because at the end of the movie, when they're all working together on the observatory to try and, you know, thaw the mirrors and move the telescope and things like that, Bruce lets Robin and Batgirl fall, and then Bruce doesn't go to catch them because he's like, you've got this covered. And that's completely based on his competence and showing trust on his competence, not like trust for any kind of emotional reason. Like, I don't emotionally trust you to be part of this team, and I can have your back and you'll know that I'll be there to have yours as well. It wasn't like that. It was like, he's fallen, he's capable, he's good, he's an acrobat, all fine there. But like, he pretty much just let him fall without a safety net. And at the end, they had that conversation where Robin was like, hey, when I fell, you didn't try to catch me. And he goes, yeah, I know, because you really had it covered, and I sometimes have to trust you. And I was like, yeah, okay. But, Dick,
What's up?
that's risky.
Like, no, with like convenient.
Yeah. It just wraps it up in a neat little package.
That little nice little bow. Just I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But I feel like Dick doesn't want to be alone, and he wants to be recognized for his competence, but he also doesn't go about finding that the right way. He's also trying to find attachment from somebody who is very avoidant.
Well, and I think that's our trouble with the fact that why like that Robin is so old. That I think that's what makes it so hard to try and convey that, because the way he wants to see it, he wants to be trust, wants to be part of the unit and that. But the way he's conveying it also like seems like he wants him to be the father figure, but it doesn't really come off that way because they're both pretty much the same age.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's not like a father, son, or a mentor.
Hey.
And, at the end when he says, I want you to be my partner, or he goes, I want you to trust me now when they're about to go, and Robin's going to see Ivy for that last time. He says, what does he say? He goes, you once told me that sometimes counting on someone else is the only way to win, and you need to trust your partner, and you need to trust me now. And he calls him brother for the first time. And I was like, brother's probably right. Like, you're in more of the age range of brother right now. But he wants that love, and he wants to feel that love, but I feel like he doesn't want it to be a leash. But he does. Then again, like as we said, he doesn't do anything to prevent Bruce from dropping his guard or that protection from him, because obviously he would feel a whole weight of responsibility if anything was to happen to Dick Grayson and Robin. He would absolutely go through another layer of trauma.
He's an adult. He can make his own decision.
Well, that's where he gets to in the end, when he's just like, he's falling. If he doesn't catch himself, that's fine.
That's why like when they first brought Robin in, what are they doing with life right now?
I honestly think, because this is the only time we've seen Batman and Robin on screen together. I mean, we got that Joseph Gordon-Levitt sort of version of Robin that wasn't revealed until later. We've got the Titans, but I mean like in a cinematic sort of way. So if James Gunn is going to do it for the DCU, I think that they have to really nail that sort of father-son dynamic, which means they might have to do an aged Batman and a very teenage or new sort of actor in terms of
Also, they don't really need
Robin.
They just need to make sure that it's a teen Robin, or someone who at least can pull off a teen Robin.
I'd want to see Damian, man. I'd want to see Damian Wayne.
Oh, 100%. So, but if they do that, depending on what James Gunn decides to do, because he's doing Batman Brave and the Bold, I hope they don't play it like Brave and the Bold.
I hope they go with Damian, and they give us a adult Nightwing, and that history is explored later through character development. That's what I hope. I hope that Nightwing can be already developed.
Because it depends for me. I reckon it depends more on the timeline of when they're going to put Batman in. So if it's going to be, if they're going to put, like, I wouldn't mind a movie for Batman, not like a Batman Begins or a Batman where it shows him falling down a well again and fucking bats come out and scare him and he becomes Batman.
Yeah, we've done the origin.
We've done that so many times.
And I don't think anybody can beat the origin more than the Nolan movies did. Like that's the epitome, really.
And like we've done the Year One with Robert Pattinson. That was Batman Year One. Fucking phenomenal. That's one of my favorite Batman movies because
that is my favorite Batman movie. And Pattinson's my favorite Batman. I'll go on record and say he's my favorite Batman.
I have to say same. Because I love Year One. I love because you get to see him and you see him because they sort of did it in the Nolan's Batmans with what's his name?
Christian Bale.
They sort of did that with him but like he went basically straight from having no sort of Batman gear to just being full Batman.
Started out,
We started out, whereas here you see him like he's still wearing like knee pads and shit and just normal
hockey
combat
pads.
boots and shit like that. And you see him like wearing like And I think Batman does it for like one fight in the Nolan movies.
And
When
also his
the car,
Batmobile, the Patterson Batmobile is also like a muscle car
yeah,
that
muscle
has been
car.
rigged out with armor, which I think is absolutely perfect.
Like a
Because yeah, that
because that
chase
moment
scene,
he's so good.
yeah, like when he's chasing down the paint. Yeah,
And then
we'll do an episode on the Batman
mate,
later,
how
but
could we?
we're
Sure, we
digressing.
should. Anyway, we are digressing.
We are
But anyway,
digressing.
go back to my what I was initially saying. We've had the origin story explained to death. We've had the year one now with Robert Pattinson. I wouldn't mind now one where, because realistically, Batman should have already been doing his thing before Superman gets on into the page. So I reckon if we pick up where Superman is with Batman, Batman should already have Robin. Robin should already be like almost ready to move on, and then either we can get sort of a Damian in like the second movie or maybe even the third movie, or we do you think, because the thing is before Damien we have to have Dick, Jason, and Tim also, and it might explore like some facets of like him now because of what happened with Jason. It might have a few like maybe a flashback of what happened with Jason, and Jason might still be dead, quotation marks.
Yeah.
And you might have Tim now, and then all of a sudden, like maybe in like the second movie, Damien comes into it, and then there's that dynamic of he's got Tim, but now hey, here's Damien, and that sort of like brings up and that they could explore some sort of like
Competitive son arc. Yeah.
contention between the two Robins, and then because then Tim might end up going, nah, screw this, you can have your fun, I'll go be a Robin for like Teen Titans.
Yeah, or form the Teen Titans,
Yeah,
which would then
Teen Titans
progress into something else that James Gunn could do.
So like a Teen Titans movie with Cyborg, Beast Boy, Raven, and Starfire.
Starfire, yeah. I think that would be the go. But I like in this Robin, I can definitely agree. Chris O'Donnell, I do like him as an actor. I like this Robin, but I do agree he's too old for the role. But I think that and that sort of pushes the point as well, where he's trying to form that connection with Bruce, but you're already like, you're acting like a teenage brat, and you should be a fully grown, like you look like a fully grown man. So
yeah,
it's hard. It's hard
you
to
look like just
reconcile.
a giant man child.
Yeah. And also the way that he's acting seems immature. Like the way that these fights were choreographed and the way that the arguments sort of ensued between Bruce and Dick in this movie felt to me like I was on yard duty at school, and there was like two kids that were saying, and then we lie on our backs and knock our feet together and ice skates come out, and then you go get the diamond and I'll go get, like, it just felt like two kids were just thinking, what's the cool thing that we could do here for Batman and Robin? But let's talk about Victor Fries, because he weaponizes love in this movie. Like, he's obviously using it as a motivation to fix his emotional damage, you could say. Like, he's turned his love into this obsession, and he's literally got her on a pedestal. Like, you could say it's on a pedestal, in a glass tank pedestal.
And also, the scariest part of that is it's probably the most comic accurate part of this entire movie. Is just Victor Fries, minus the thousands and thousands of puns.
Yeah, and I think
that seems more like a Captain Cool kind of thing to do.
They actually did that because Arnold Schwarzenegger is known for obviously having those famous one-liners. So it was like, well, let's put 27 of them in this movie. Hopefully one will stick. Also, marketing gold. You can just put the one-liners on all of the commercials and it'll sell. But I do agree. Like,
Mr. Freeze action doll, where you press a button and he says one-liners.
Glows blue. Yeah. Pull the pull string. But yeah, he's definitely using that love and that obsession as a way to drive his motivations. Like, he says at one point, if I'm to suffer, humanity will suffer with me. And that's after Ivy obviously tricks him into thinking that Nora has been killed. But yeah, his devotion to Nora is definitely comic accurate, and it's a way that he justifies his cruelty and his hostage taking and the mass harm that he's doing. For most of the movie, he's just procuring diamonds though, and he's not really doing any research to save her. I would have liked for the motivation of him to continue his research to be more foregrounded than him wanting to freeze the world. Like, that revenge plot sort of happened a little bit too soon for me. But like, he's endlessly watching old wedding footage to show that, like, he's not integrating his grief into his life. He's kind of the opposite of Batman in this stage, where Batman's going towards the end of his grief journey through his parents, and he's just at the start of it, still obsessing over it. And he becomes violent when he's sentimentally exposed as well, when he's watching those videos and the henchman comes in and says, Mr. Freeze, you want to see this? And he literally picks up a gun and shoots him and freezes him cold and flat because he sees him crying.
And then he has to be interrupted while watching this movie.
Yeah, well, that's the line that he says. It's like, don't you hate it when they talk during the movie? But yeah, it reflects this complicated grief arc for him because I feel like his attachment is, excuse the pun, frozen in the point where obviously he's trying to fix something that he can't. But his devotion is undeniable. His weaponizing that love is very much an unhealthy sort of mechanism, and it proves that like a lot of people get away with doing things in the name of love. But I feel like Mr. Freeze and Arnold's portrayal of him proves that like love doesn't redeem you automatically, or it doesn't make your actions justifiable, because without compassion it just becomes his own personal prison. Like you see him in the beam of cold light, but you could also say like him not processing that grief properly or working towards a solution that is actually helpful, whether it be personal growth or research based, he's actually just stunted and frozen in this space of trying to cope with something that happened in his past that he's not able to do. But he does sort of make Batman think about the way that he connects with others, because he's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy for Bruce, because he's like, Freeze loved this woman and now she's gone, and she's like, he's turned cold-hearted as a result of that. So it sort of doubles down Bruce on being that detached. And I think that for that reason, Freeze and Batman in this movie couple very well. And it probably had the potential to be something very emotionally driven and a little bit, darker, or an emotional journey that could explore those sort of facets of healthy love and unhealthy love, and healthy connection and unhealthy connection, and moving past grief as it happens. But yeah, alas, we were given this soapbox childhood poppy
See, and
idea
that's
of
the thing,
Batman
like,
instead.
as a whole, the story arc of this movie, I think, was absolutely fantastic.
Well,
If you take away all the puns and the other bits of bullshit and pettiness and so that, and just as a storyline of Batman versus the villains, I love Mr. Freeze's story, and even Pamela's coming into it, off
Yep.
Blues Nighties, like, because you can see even when they decided to partner up, you could see it was never going to work. He wanted an ice age, she wanted the jungle. Ice and plants, they don't mix.
No.
So, like, you knew there was going to be some sort of falling out between those two as well. And for me, like, just thinking about that as a movie, I'll be like, hell yeah, this is going to be awesome. Like, Gotham's going to turn into this giant, like, rainforest versus Ice Age, and then Batman's going to try and stop it all. And it was going to be so good. But then it just sort of became this sort of joke on itself. But I believe as a whole, the story itself is solid. It's just what they did within sight of that story.
Yeah, well, I think alone the Victor Freeze arc would be enough to drive an emotional beat through a movie, because he's got this moral tunnel vision, which is very compelling as a villain to look at and see, because I think everybody can say that they love somebody enough or have loved somebody enough to move mountains for that person. So it's a very sort of relatable trait that Victor Freeze has. And this fixation that he has is obviously the antithesis of that. It's the absolute extrapolation and the far versus like vision of that love. So it's like he doesn't want to accept a world where that love for him does not exist anymore, and he doesn't want to exist beyond her. So he has this narrowing of ethical concern for all others based on this attachment loss that he has. So he goes through these complicated grief patterns, and then he's like, instead of like bereaving the person or grieving them properly, he's like almost warped to this reality where love becomes the only thing that matters, and it quietly erases literally everything else that should. So yeah, it literally shows that unresolved grief and the patterns of like single attachment that seems unhealthy, and the fact that he justifies harm to others as a result of his unhealthy connection and his obsession. But I think that Freeze is like, I always took him as a really sort of shallow villain. Like, he's a man that makes everything cold. But I think what they do with him in this movie is pretty good. Like the Arnold Schwarzenegger side of it and the puns and things like that, not so good. But I also loved how, how Arnold Schwarzenegger's like Mr. Olympic, and he's extremely like a big burly man. They kind of addressed that in this movie too, when they were doing the dossier file on him, when they were like, he's a 2-time decathlete champion and a research scientist. So they're like, the reason he's so huge,
the reason why is big and
is
strong
because yeah,
for a scientist.
yeah,
But
and
like see, to me, the Mr. Freeze character is meant to be cold and calculated, and that's why I think that's why they made his character ice related, because he's just a cold, calculated person.
yeah,
But in this, he seems cold and calculated because gets one up on Batman and Robin like pretty much the whole entire movie. He's one upping them. And it's almost like it seems like there's a plan, but
yeah,
you don't actually, and that's what I mean with Batman and Robin. How Robin's always like, oh, you don't let me, you don't trust me, blah blah. And I'm like, well, because you really haven't shown anything to say why he should trust you. He says you're being reckless because you are being reckless. Like if there's some sort of like, oh, what's that? With the camera, it's showing you something.
close up
Well, there's some sort of like film mod. I say is like being able to show you like with the camera, like
cinematography.
yeah, some sort of cinematography that shows you that he had a plan going before he gets interrupted by Batman and gets frozen or something. Same with Mr. Freeze. If it shows that he had some sort of plan, the only plan is, oh look, they're gonna have a diamond here. Let's go crash a party, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's
like,
almost
there's
like
no cold calculating part. Where's the cold
yeah,
calculating part of Mr. Freeze? Where's the scientist in Mr. Freeze?
the love subplot is backseated for the jewelry heist, which I didn't really like because it was almost like he was powering his. It was like he was on this vicious cycle because he was trying to steal diamonds to power his suit so he could do the research. But in going to steal diamonds, he would deplete the energy of his suit and therefore need to go out and get more diamonds.
Well, no, this thing is like he needs diamonds to power his suit to keep himself cold, and then he needs big diamonds to make a device to hold Gotham hostage to get $1 billion.
Yeah, to
He
fund
has
his
like
research.
the fund his research. He has 9 or 13 diamonds in that fucking device. Mate,
That's enough
you
for a grant.
have the funds right there. You don't need to hold them hostage. Just sell the diamonds and do your research. Sell the diamonds, get all the money, piss off somewhere with Eleanor.
No, Nora.
Sorry, Nora. Piss off with Nora somewhere in a different country with all your money. Do your research and save your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then live your life in a different country and never go back to Gotham again. And you're sweet.
Yeah.
But no. We're going to concoct some stupid plan to create a giant ice age in Gotham by stealing a whole bunch of diamonds worth enough money that you could use for research.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah.
I know. Let's talk about the way that Freeze's arc ends. So let's talk about the ending of Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin. So we get this scene where, he's shown mercy by Batman at the end, and he says, if you could help me cure Alfred, then obviously I'll get Nora moved to your Arkham facility and you can continue your research there. So he ends with a little bit of mercy, and I feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger plays that really well. Like emotionally, you can see on his face, he does
last
seem.
scene is really, really good.
Yeah, it's not like the CGI tears that you see imported in earlier scenes, but and then it shows that almost after credit scene where he goes and then tries to get revenge on Poison Ivy. So as an audience member for me, I look at that and I can see like he's still angry, he's still isolated, he's still unhinged, he's still like caging everything up, and even after being shown that mercy, he retaliates rather than releases his control on this obsession that he has. So his love never transforms into this compassion. It remains like fixed, exclusive, and punishing. And, he still has no moral concern of others. He's still like revenge seeking, and that like the love can no longer adapt for that. So it can only save you when it includes someone like beyond yourself. And he's really just sort of done that turnaround again. So as a character, it's like, was his motivations truly to save Nora because he's been shown this mercy and this compassion by Batman, which closes his arc after Batman finally let someone in Alfred and then was able to feel again, and he presents that mercy then to Victor Freeze, but he then goes back to his old pattern.
I was going to say, but like, was he always really a violent man, and Nora was the one that was keeping that violent sort of nature at bay, and now because no Nora, he constantly keeps falling back into old habits of being a violent person.
Yeah, well, I'd say that's probably
as that might be the case, but because of all the puns taking up all the airtime, they couldn't really do any sort of proper backstories on any characters or any character development because there's too many puns.
Well, I think that there's definitely some evidence towards that, because if you see the wedding videos of Freeze and Nora, he looks like a very compassionate and loving man in those videos there. So yeah, I think his ending showed to me that he was actually more of a villain than a misunderstood hero. And I would have liked to have seen Freeze's research and foregrounding that yearning and love connection a little bit more than the diamond heisting. So
Yeah.
I don't think he ends well. But let's talk about Alfred now, the goat of the series and the absolute savior of Bruce Wayne and Batman in more ways than one. This is the more healthier version of connection and love that I've found in this movie so far, because Alfred is a very vulnerable man, not only because of his age, but he's also the wise mentor that teaches Dick and Bruce that they should trust one another, that they should be open with how they're feeling. They should communicate more. And he even says, obviously there's secrets that happen within this house, but they do have to be open with each other. So, but then there's also conflicting things towards that in his character representation, because he says, "Didn't I teach you that it's ungentlemanly to air your dirty laundry out?" when they're talking about his sickness. So yes, he is a representation of a really good sort of accepting version of love, but he's also got some little flaws through this movie too. So I think that, especially in terms of boys, the discussion point here is like, strength isn't about emotional detachment or doing it alone. And Alfred's the person that advocates for that the most in a mature way, other than
Yeah.
Robin, who literally says it as a whinge and a whine.
Also a bit of a hypocrite though at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't really read too much into that space either.
But like he shows all this caring and wants everyone to be emotionally available for each other and to help each other on that emotional level. But at the same time, I think um because of their issues, he sort of buries his own to help them instead of like wanting them to be more worried or concerned because of his health issues.
Yeah.
Because he can see that they're already having trouble. He doesn't want to burden them by adding more trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only until not until they're already and when he collapses and that they're like, oh shit,
Yeah. And
Alfred's
that,
in trouble.
I was kind of waiting, because I hadn't watched this since I was a lot younger. So I was kind of waiting for the time when Alfred's illness or demise rejoined those characters in a way that was meaningful, almost like the Greg Coulson of the Avengers, to name a more modern reference. But it didn't really happen in that way because of obviously George Clooney, Bruce Wayne's detachment. He does go through that scene prior where he does say, "I love you, old man," and Alfred says, "I love you too." And that's probably the first time I've seen Bruce Wayne in a movie express like love verbally to anyone other than like a supermodel. And I think that was really, really good for me to see, with that, the fact that he was almost closing the arc or being thankful of, or seeing the memories of Alfred bringing him up, and not focusing on the fact that he'd gone through all this grief-stricken and traumatic events, but he was almost silver lining it, like looking at, oh, Alfred picks me up when I'm down. Alfred's been here all the time. Alfred helped me grieve through this process. And then he was like, "I love you." And then from that, he was able to then, I'll put in quotes, trust Robin and let him fall off the observatory tower on his own.
I was gonna say there is actually one other Batman who sort of conveys love to Alfred that we've seen in movies. And that's Robert Pattinson one.
Does he? I
Yeah.
thought that they had a really tumultuous relationship with Andy Serkis's
After
Alfred.
the explosion and
That's
he's in the
right.
hospital.
Yes.
He's in the hospital, and then they basically, because they do have a bit of tumultuous relationship up till that scene, and then that's when sort of Robert and him sort of have that healing moment together
Yeah.
of like of Robert actually being concerned and actually finally saying like basically to Andy that he's like a father to him, and
Yeah.
he wouldn't know what he does if he was to lose him too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like the Alfred character is somebody who reframes love for Bruce in a lot of contexts. Like he frames it as a responsibility rather than a weakness, but then he also reframes love as something that calls you toward action as opposed to like away from action, or it stops you from avoiding and distracts from the mission, but it defines the mission, so to speak. And there's that fine line when you're talking about defining the mission for love based on whether you're doing it for love. As we said with Freeze, it can move to that obsession state, but it can also move to that self-determination as well, and showing that relatedness and strength and motivation and resilience as well. And that love doesn't soften Batman, but it grounds him and it makes him different from the villains that he fights. So I think
See,
that's the purpose of Alfred.
well, no, again, talking about the purpose of Alfred. So I don't think there's ever really been a bad Alfred, because
Mm.
Alfred, it's almost like in the Nolan movies with Batman, where he says, "Oh, I'm not the hero the city deserves, I'm the one that needs," or something. No, I'm not
Yeah,
one
it
that
needs right
needs.
now. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, see, Alfred is always the person that Batman needs, not so much deserves. So when he needs emotional support, Alfred's that emotional support.
he needs a course correction.
When
Alfred's
he's
there to
course
do that
correction,
too.
he does that. Alfred changes himself depending on what Bruce needs.
Yeah, he'll be his harshest critic, but it'll also be
Mhm.
his soft place to land. And I think that's
Exactly.
the beauty of Alfred too.
He's
I think Michael
he's
Gough
the one.
throughout these movies does that.
Yeah, and he's the one who initially trains Bruce to fight. Like when he first loses his parents, when he can see he's angry as that, so he teaches him how to fight. Eventually goes off and does his Batman training and comes back. But Alfred was one initially teaching fight, because Alfred knows, if he is just to let that anger fester, it won't be good. So he needs to try and expel that anger in a more productive way. So he teaches him how to fight, just to get rid of that sort of a bit of that anger behind him. But then, yeah, when he needs help with Robin, like say he's being too hard on Robin or anything like that, or being too harsh, like he sort of steps in and sort of just gives him a little bit of words of wisdom. And usually it's back, like he usually uses an example of back when he was a boy, and he's like, "Oh, I used to know a young man who used to be like that." Oh, and then
Yeah,
Batman's like, "Ah, yeah, you're talking
it
about
was
me."
you, wasn't it, Alfred?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. What you're talking about me. You're talking about how when I was a little shit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
I understand. Yeah. So
Yeah, relating it back to
he's always been that character that like Batman needs.
the
Like
reality check.
he's always the one that he needs at that time,
Mm,
and
yeah.
changes depending on what Batman's going through, or what Bruce is going.
Yeah. So I think through this movie, he's probably the healthiest representation of connection and love, but I do not think that it's a perfect representation at all. But let's move on to talk about why this film failed and why it's been included in our Failure Isn't Final theme arc. So we'll go into a few reasons about that, and then we'll rate it and we'll do our sign-offs from there. So this movie technically wasn't a flop. It was budgeted at $125 million, and it earned 238 million worldwide. And I think the reason that it did that was because that it did have a big backing, 3 movies before it, and they were very much the event of the 90s. I watched this documentary that said, and Joel Schumacher was talking on it, and he said there was a lot of secrecy around this movie. That being said, there were always people visiting the set because it was just something that lots of people wanted to see, whether it be politicians or famous people that just wanted to come and have a look. And because it was kid centric and kid focused, they'd bring their kids to come and see the Batman set as well. So it was very much a very hyped movie, and there was a lot of audience backing behind it. And obviously, Batman is a very popular character. With that being said, upon release, audience reception was poor, critic reception was extremely negative, and a lot of the reason for that was because of the camp and the tonal shift that we saw in this movie from the previous Batmans that came before it. Like we talked earlier, Brash, about the Tim Burton directed Batman movies, Batman and then Batman Returns.
And you do feel it, like they do gradually go. So the original one with Mark Keaton and with the Penguin, there was a much darker tone, more greys. It seemed more Gotham and more darker Batman. And then slowly as it got more popular, I think they just got to a point where like, oh, these ones probably aren't that appropriate for kids. Let's start dialing it back, and so we can probably make more money.
Well,
So
yeah,
I think that's how it came down to. Like, we need to make more money off this. We need to be able to target it to more people. Let's make it more kid friendly. But by doing that, it's completely ruined the sort of direction that they had, like the good direction they already had.
yeah,
But then
that's
again,
exactly right.
but because like the out of the old 4 movies, my favorite is 1, then 2, then 3, then 4.
Yeah.
Like It just totally, like, even when I was a kid, like, it was 1, then 2, then 3, then 4.
My favorite as a kid was 3, then 4, then 1, then 2. Just a different guy. And I think through the 90s, that was like, it was definitely a big thing for everybody. Like, my first Batman was Batman Forever in 1995, and I fell in love with Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face, and he's still my favorite Batman villain to date. Not Tommy Lee Jones's version of Two-Face, but Two-Face as a whole. Like, he's still my favorite Batman villain because he was the very first one that I saw. But yeah, I think you're right when you talked about that tonal shift, whether it being more directed towards kids, because Joel Schumacher actually said that he was urged by the studio to have a marketing first and merchandised view of this movie. So anything he could do and put in this movie to make it kid friendly, more colorful, and maximize toy lines is exactly what they should do. So he's been pretty open about it too. Joel Schumacher said, like, he wasn't forced to do anything. This was the movie he wanted to do, but there was definitely some monetary motivation behind it. So they talked about having multiple villains in the movie between Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, and Bane, and also introducing Batgirl, because more characters equal more action figures. And then each time that they had a different suit as well, like, that would be a different type of action figure that they could sell. Whenever you saw Mr. Freeze in his suit or out of his suit, that's two different action figures. Or whether the weapons that he's using, that was different sort of action figures too, or different themed play sets that they could make. Like, Bane was pretty much simplified to a mute henchman, because, you know, nuance for him doesn't sell toys. But the biggest sort of thing was the vehicles. Obviously, Robin with his motorbike. There was the Bat skates, there's the Batmobiles, and then the ice-themed vehicles at the end. Like, there was just so much marketable toy features from this movie, because previously on Batman Forever, they'd made a lot of their bulk money from those toy sales. So Warner Brothers doubled down, basically. So another thing was like marketing overload. If you remember, like, the McDonald's promotions, the toy and obviously exclusive ads, the animation style commercials that came out, cross promotion across video games and things like that had an impact. But I feel like all of these things obviously impacted creatively, because the plot became thin, the characters turned into caricatures, there was no emotional stakes, and it was undercut by lots of puns and jokes. It became very campy, and obviously it was directed towards children, so older fans felt alienated, and then critics pretty much bombed it. But yeah, ironically, apparently the toy-driven approach actually hurt the brand. So when we're talking about failure isn't final, we can talk about the fact that having that approach actually did hurt the film more than it helped the film. And you can even retort it back to that famous Batman line that we know, you know, why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. And obviously they did that because this franchise was iced. A lot of the planned sequels were cancelled. There was supposed to be a movie coming out after this called Batman Unchained, which was supposed to feature the Scarecrow. And then Chris O'Donnell's also gone on the record to say that they were going to do a Nightwing spin-off, all cancelled as a result. But later through the years, I think it was 15 years later, obviously Nolan attached to it and created one of the most critically acclaimed Batman trilogies of all time. So why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. But the most controversial aspect of this entire film, Brash, can you guess what it was? It has something to do with the suits.
Oh, the rubber suits, the nibbles.
Yeah, baby, it's the nipples. So yes, so the more anatomically correct suits, apparently it was all the buzz. But I've watched interviews with like George Clooney, Chris O'Donnell, and also Joel Schumacher, and when they were making those, they were like, I didn't really think it was a big deal, because Joel Schumacher is very famous for using human figures and bodies in his work. So like, we looked at a lot of his scenes and set design from the Phantom of the Opera, and also throughout Gotham City, you can see these Greek statuesque figures, just sort of all like extremely athletic looking like figures of men and women just adorning the city of Gotham. And then obviously there's these anatomical nipples on the bat suit, because that's exactly what they wanted to do.
Batman Forever also, like, Batman Forever had the nipples, and so but like the original didn't. It's just, I don't know, it's just a weird feature to have. It's like seeing someone in like medieval armor and then having having nipples on their breastplate.
Exactly. I think it's
I guess so. I mean, like, there are theme ones like that. They do that on some theme ones to make them sell it, like to make it look like it is ageist. And I suppose that's probably what they were going for. But I'm like, no, it's meant to be the bat suit, not the bat human flesh look-alike.
Yeah, no. I think it like Schumacher openly has said that he likes the glam of it. I don't mind Robin's suit in this. I think it does move more towards that Nightwing as opposed to Batman Forever where he was in the circus attire. I didn't like Nightwing with the Robin with the cape though. I think that could have gone, but it's very classical Greek and Roman sort of statues and that idealized male anatomy, but also for like going back to the toy point, each toy had to be different and then sculpted differently. And Schumacher actually said it became an issue. The only time he ever thought about the nipples was obviously when they introduced Batgirl, because he's like, how are we going to do this? Because if I do it the same way as the guys, it'll seem a little bit perverse. And if I don't include them, it might not be inclusive. So obviously Alicia Silverstone's suit was a little bit different, but they still kept that sort of same aesthetic throughout. But I think tonally it damaged the film. That undercut all the dramatic scenes. It made Batman feel like a bit of a parody, and it gave critics a little bit of a shorthand, because everybody was complaining about the nipples on the bat suit over everything else. So, but this movie, yes, Batman and Robin definitely killed any kind of sequel. It definitely is worthy of our failure isn't final theme arc. Let's go to our community thoughts, because on our threads we put up a post that said, tell me one good thing about Batman and Robin and tell me one bad thing about Batman and Robin. So we had a few people comment on this. First, we had Reese Daniel Thompson, who said, honestly, Schwarzenegger was pretty great as Freeze, but Batgirl had no business being in the movie.
I mean, and that's sort of like, because it is odd, because she comes in like right at the very, like, well, you do see
And
she comes
honestly,
in as a character, but she doesn't
she
actually come in
doesn't
as
serve a
Batgirl at the very
purpose
end.
either.
No, not
Yeah.
really.
And I
Whereas,
think it's again back to that marketing for a toy.
yeah, and I would
have
much
seen,
prefer her coming in at the very start of the movie and
yeah,
having
yeah.
some sort of role in the movie,
Mm.
rather than just adding another character for the characters to just for inclusion's sake.
Yeah, well, I have seen that Joel Schumacher has said that the reason she was included was obviously to appeal to the young girls in the audience to widen that fan base, because basically in the Batman universe, the only people they have to look at was Poison Ivy and Catwoman, and they're not really role models, you could say. So, whereas in this movie, Alicia Silverstone does play Batgirl to be a little bit more progressive for the 90s, you could say. So maybe that was the reason. But again, I think they've done it tokenistically and not to very much effect, because she's only in it for 13 minutes screen time or whatever it is, and not effective at all. So we had another person, Rusty Button 42, that said, I loved that Robin is basically in the Nightwing costume in it. I hate that his Nightwing costume had a cape, and I'll always love the stupid Batman Forever reference with the credit card. It's both good and bad at the same time. So yeah, you know how it said Batman credit card valid until forever. Yeah. But yeah, I think that added to the camp of it. But we had Sean Solo 3000 that said Clooney's Bruce Wayne was spot on. His scenes with Alfred were the best of the movie. Clooney's Batman is simply the same thing, which is not good for Batman. It's like the Adam West 97 parody version. Keaton, Kilmer, Bale, Affleck and Pattinson all played Bruce and Batman differently, but Clooney didn't, and he thought that was yuck. And lastly, we had Scholasticus Maximus, who said one good thing about the movie was Bane, and one bad thing about the movie was that Bane was in it in this way.
Yeah, because we said that, like we were talking about that earlier, like we have different degree variations on what we thought about Bane, but see, I liked how Bane looked and just hated everything else about Bane. Even I went as far as to say I hated Bane in the Nolan movies.
Yeah, which I disagreed
how he
with.
looked, but I liked how he acted and how he sounded. I just hated how he looked.
Yeah, I liked everything about Hardy's.
And the fact that he didn't have Venom. Venom, he didn't have the pen. He's not Bane. He's just a big dude in a fucking gas mask.
Yeah.
Bane without Venom is not Bane.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, he was a character that was added purely for merchandising and toy sales. You could say that he was the muscle to Poison Ivy, and she even admits that as a character. Like, I'm the beauty and he's the brawn. Like, that was the line. I think that, he's a character that he could have been just henchman number 3. It didn't have to be Bane. Yeah, so I think he was a hit and a miss for this one as well. So, all right, let's rate it ourselves. Brash, you can go first.
Watching this again, I mean, for nostalgia's sake, 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very fair. I think for me, if I'm going to do my rating, I'll probably give it a 1 as well for nostalgia's sake, because it was a movie that I watched a lot as a child and all like everything that we've talked about before. I think George Clooney is probably, no offense, George, if you're listening, my least favorite Batman. And then the only thing I really do like about it is I do like the Robin character in this and I like how he's portrayed, but I do think Chris O'Donnell was a bit old. So I'm giving it a 1 as well. I think it's funny that even though we're completely opposite on the things that we like and hate about this movie, we both still rated it a 1.
Well, because what the things I liked you didn't like, and the things that you liked I didn't like.
Yeah. Well, what was your favorite thing about this movie, Brash? What was your favorite thing? And you can't say the ice puns.
Not all thing were like they've ruined this movie.
Yeah.
My favorite thing I think from this movie, like besides Alfred too, because Alfred I like Alfred too. I have to say I liked I actually liked the action in this compared to the other other Batmans, because of the suits, and I'm sure that even in these suits they're fucking horrible. The action was always really
stilted
because of the lack of movement and the whole meme of the Batman looking around.
Yeah, his whole head turns. Well, they even addressed that in Batman Begins, didn't they?
Body.
Yeah, they said, I need to be able to turn my head and not get stabbed by bullets. That was something that was said.
But yeah, so I reckon they did pretty well in terms of like choreography and action. Some of it did look a bit ridiculous still. I mean, and sliding down the dinosaur.
The dinosaur. Yabba dabba doo.
Yeah, but that was pretty cool and shit.
Yeah,
they had some cool moments.
I can agree.
Like them, like on the doors of the exploded rocket, and when they're traveling down, like they're
surfing, air
like,
surfing.
Yeah. Was it you're skydiving with the surfboards and shit?
Yeah. Honestly, I can see why it appealed to me as a kid because, those action sequences is what you watch a Batman movie for. And, like, the characters are completely caricatured, which is easy for kids to understand. I probably will show this movie to my son just for, like, an entry-level Batman experience.
And just sit there and just stare at him and just look at his facial expressions throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, see what happens. Yeah, we'll see how he runs with it. But I think my favorite thing in this movie was, apart from the action, the sound effects that was coupled with the action. Like, you see people slip over and it's like that classic whoop, or somebody like gets like popped off, and like the sound of the diamonds squelching across the floor, and when the rockets explode and things like that. Like, I think there's a lot of fun things about this movie when you don't look at it too seriously. But I think
the Batmobile is all right. I still prefer
in this one the original Batmobile.
The original Batmobile. Oh, that is my Batmobile. I love that Batmobile so much. Big fins. The thing is, like, the one I didn't like about this one was the fact that it had no canopy. You just sort of jumped in it, and he's like, you see his head poking out the top. He's trying to
they wanted to make it more Formula One.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, exactly. It looked really Formula One. I still sort of half like the style of it, and even like Robin's motorcycle. Which
I like that he had his own motorbike. That was pretty cool.
Bat cycle and everything like that. But yeah,
see, all the stuff that we like are things that we probably liked as a kid.
Yeah.
And the reason why Warner Brothers did this was because obviously you'd want to go and buy all these things that we're talking about that are cool. So, But without any further ado, Brash, is this better or worse than Aragon? I'm probably going to say it's worse.
I was going to say it's better.
Yeah, but you're personally attached to Aragon as to why. Look, I'm happy to put it better because we've got a bit of nostalgia connection to it. So it is ranked at number 30, pushing Aragon into Batman and Robin sits at number 30 on our Fandom Portals honor board. And that will end our episode here on Batman and Robin. This one has been a community pick from you guys. We want to thank everybody for voting, and we want to thank all our Threads people for commenting and contributing to our episode. If you wanted to be a part of that, make sure you join our socials on Instagram and on Threads. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls who listen, this is our second last episode for the year, which means our next episode, which will be our Christmas episode, will be the last for 2025. So make sure you jump on our socials to vote for which Christmas movie we will be covering on the podcast. And therefore, it will be the last entry onto our Fandom Portals honor board for this year, because Brash and I have decided that we will be restarting in the new year with our honor board, which means that final positions will be finalized. Yeah. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and thank you for voting for this episode. Thank you, Batman, for being a wonderful topic to discuss. But let's go into our gratitudes. My gratitude this week is for transferable skills, I will say. Everybody on this podcast knows I'm a gridiron player, and I went and tried something new this morning. I went and tried to play baseball, and there was a couple of transferable skills that did not make me look like an idiot, so that was good. That's what I'm grateful for, and grateful for starting something new in the form of baseball. So what's your gratitudes, Brash?
So I'm grateful for John Cena.
Yeah.
Because as of our recording this today, tomorrow is his final match at Saturday Night's main event, and before he retires against Gunther. So I want to thank John Cena for the many, many, many years of his performances in WWE and just the way he pretty much carried the WWE for so long on his shoulders.
Yeah, especially through the late 2010s / early 20s.
And all the work he's done with the many charities, including but not limited to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, where he's still the top Make-A-Wish Foundation person. So,
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, John Cena.
thank you, John Cena.
All right. This is Aaron signing off.
Right, saying bye.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep loving fandoms, guys.